Well, this just looks like a side table, you'd have just put things on with drawers. But when you open it up, you discover it's got a tape deck and a vinyl record player, and if you lower the front, it's also got a radio and controls here. So it's Period High Fidelity is the make. I did look it up. It was made about 1975. Just an old-fashioned cassette deck. But the vinyl player is good. It's a Garrard Garrard 86 SB. It's a belt drive, and it's got a reasonable cartridge in it. A Shaw M75-6S. So the vinyl deck's great. This not so great. And yeah, it didn't come with any speakers, though. It's got connections on the back for up to 4 speakers, front and rear, funny enough, which I've connected up a couple of speakers to it. But it doesn't work very well. One channel, the left channel doesn't work at all. And on the radio, you can select the radio, the tape, and the disc, they call it. If you select the radio, which is FM, you've got the stereo light. There's virtually no volume at all. The light on the radio is working. No left channel. Connections for headphones too. And there's an input for a microphone down there. Model number Impulse ST201, and on the back it says ST201-A, and I looked it up on the internet, and it's also possibly known as the Lancaster PHF9C. I couldn't find anything else. Now the radio is very quiet, no left channel, and if you try playing this, it's working, but it's hideously distorted. This is just the tape. So that's no good. So the whole thing's not very good. Whether it's worth fixing, I don't think it is. No one wants a tape player like this. No one wants really a radio. But the deck's good. So the best thing to do is to take this deck out. It looks in pretty good quality condition, and possibly just sell the deck off. And I have to scrap the rest because the amount of work to fix a blown left channel and get it all working and try and get any money back is not worth the effort. But and I doubt if anyone wants it just as a table. It's not too bad a finish. It's very, very heavy. There's the back. You see the 4 power transistors on the back. They're not getting hot, so there's nothing going on. Connections for the speakers, old DIN plugs. You can select synth, where you can connect to front and rear speakers. Very weird. And there's connections for some radio, the radio aerial down there. Not great. So I think I'll just try and get the deck out and see. It's really nice condition. I'm sure we can get that working. I'll plug it into another amp and sell that off, I think. I don't think anyone is ever going to want this. Really, it's not even collectible. It's just pretty boring looking. Okay, let's get it apart. You can't lift the top out, it doesn't seem to be fixed in anyway. So I've taken the turntable off because it's heavy, don't want that dropping out. There's the belt. And underneath there are 4 big screws which you obviously hold the chassis in. There's the aerial which plugs in the back, stuck underneath. And also you can get the back panel off 2 screws, and it looks like it's got some releasable connectors. So hopefully we can pull that out, get a multi-pin, and should be able to get this out. There's the mains coming in to service that if necessary, and also maybe get a hand in to release any other clips inside. After removing the front drop down stays from the front of this and those screws out the bottom, the whole thing now is able to slide forward, and it's pretty heavy, so I'm going to have to use 2 hands to it's like the whole chassis block here. I'll be able to get that out and put it on the table, and then there'll be full access inside to make sure not to damage the arm by if it tips over or anything. Just get this main sleeve and be able to get the deck out. Okay, I can now get my hand in underneath, and you can manipulate the clip that's underneath these 2 mounting screws that secure it in place. You can get one in the back, and you twist them till they're vertical, and then the deck can be lifted out. So I can't get hold of it. It can be lifted out. See the clips there as you go into those holes. So I can get that out. If I wanted to get this out, it's held in by big metal U plate with some screws. So I need to just unscrew them. And interestingly, this is now like an empty box, so you could just use it as a desk or storage, store something in it. This was pretty professionally made at the time, and you can see that these modules, I've got all internal connectors which increase the cost a lot to do it like this. So for instance, the deck here, it's got a DIN plug goes in there, and there are other DIN plugs obviously for the cassette player, and there's a DIN plug here goes off to the socket on the back. There's the radio comes in, the aerial, and for its age it's got a toroidal transformer there, which weren't cheap for the voltages. The plugs are good quality, so everything was quite high quality. It wasn't cheap, so the thing was quite expensive when it was new. As I said before, more sockets here. It's not worth repairing it. Even if it worked 100%, I don't think anyone would want it just for a deck. I can get to the bottom under here and remove these. There's 4 screws holding the bottom of the deck of the cassette deck. I've taken the others out, and I can lift that out now, and everything is still plugged in. Even the mains are on plugs into the back of this unit. Can't quite pull it out. There's plugs will be into the back of this as well. Everything is pluggable, so it was designed modular, which is quite clever. They just bought off the shelf record player and cassette deck and just put them in and connected them up to their own radio and amp section. One cassette deck taken out. It's a very tight fit, unfortunately, where they pushed it in. It's got wrapped round the front. All the connections were on sockets on the back, so they've all been unplugged here. Actually, one of them ripped off when I was trying to get it out. That's no problem. Well, I'm not going to be putting it back together again anyway. So you could take out the main amp now if I wanted to, and the back. I don't know if there's any usable parts worth keeping. DIN plugs. No one really uses DIN plugs anymore, so I don't see even worth keeping. These are only cheap anyway. The toroidal transformer's quite nice, but it's obviously custom made for this, so it's not even worth keeping that either. Knobs, no. Maybe these press-on knobs might come in useful one day if someone's lost one. They're pretty generic, it's on a lot of equipment. Anyway, deck, this, that, and the main thing, the record player over there. The deck's proving a bit of a problem with age. It's seized up. This wheel that is driven round to do all the auto mechanism pivots on this shaft in the middle, but it was completely seized. I couldn't turn it at all at first. Since I've taken it off now and undone the nuts and forced it round, it's turning a bit, but very stiff. So I've just undone the screws on the other side. I'm just going to take this off without losing that ball bearing that's in there. I had to take off a number of plates and that, so you make sure you keep all the washers and the E-clips hopefully in the order that you took them off, so that they you don't forget where they go. And then I've just got to get this mechanism out of the way, and then I can get this off, clean up this shaft, and also this grease here is gone, which is not slippery anymore, and put it back together, and that should be okay. I sawed the plinth of the thing in half. I cut the bit off that had the cassette deck in, which this makes quite a useful thing to put the deck in while I'm working on it. The belt is also stretched, and it's also not a very good quality belt. You can see here at the join where they've made a strip and join, it's got really hard lump. Now that hard lump is luckily is on one side, so you have to make sure that it's on the outside as it goes over the spindle on the inside. If it's on the inside, when it goes over the spindle, it will probably cause a glitch, which could transfer to the deck, you don't know. Anyway, that's not very good. But it's stretched so much that it slips all the time, so I've had to order a new one. This shaft is solid. This is supposed to rotate on that shaft, but it's just seized solid. So what I'm going to do is get a decent massive iron, and I'm going to have to heat the centre shaft. I'm just supporting it in this vise so I can actually push it through. I'm going to have to heat it till it gets hot enough, and then it will push down and we should be able to pull it out, and then clean it up, re-lubricate it, and it should work properly then. It seems very common on these old decks that these things seize up. They're going down now. that's gone down. So hopefully now with a pair of pliers I'll be able to pull that out. I've pulled it out with a pair of pliers. It was completely seized. Took quite a bit of heat to get that to release. So now I'll clean it up, clean the hole up, re-grease it, and re-grease this channel as well. And I'm a bit worried about this. It looks like it's broken. If that is broken, it's not going to work. I've managed to get a belt, which is, as you can see, is a lot shorter than the stretched one, and also it's hasn't got any bumps in it where the joining, nice and flexible. So that's one good thing. And I've also managed to get another wheel here from someone who was breaking one up, and I managed to buy that because it's got this trip mechanism on it with the little part sticking up, which isn't broken, whereas the one on this one was had been snapped off, and probably snapped off because this was seized solid and wouldn't go round. So they've tried to force the wheel round, and also on here is a little piece that sticks out, and that operates that, and it was probably catching. So what they've done is butchered it, but they've snapped that off to stop it catching, and they've forced it round to try and get this to turn. And at the same time they managed to virtually this part here, which sticks out, has been sort of ground away. So I might have to build it up as well. So that's good. I can put it back together again, see if we can get this whole thing to work now. I've reassembled all the mechanism. Remember to tighten these two screws and this nut there, which holds the gear underneath, and also underneath, just make sure, have a look at that, where the bits go. Oh, there's one rod, there's a little rod underneath there, you can't quite see it, but it has to clip into the back of that plastic part. Oh, there it is, that rod there, it's held just down there, it's held by that plastic piece. Goes one side and the other, so you have to be careful you get that in. Otherwise it won't work, because it pushes this plastic piece here, which is the piece that had broken off on the other side, and then it catches on the main turntable when it's going round, so then starts it up, all the mechanism working. Make sure you put the spring back on the right place and all the little clips. Now it's just a matter of I did test it, I'll show you it working in a second when I put the turntable back on, and there's the part that was broken off just there, that little piece that sticks up, and that is the part that starts and stops the mechanism in autoplay, etc. And it's the part that is flipped by the little projection on the turntable. Put the turntable on without a belt, so I can do it manually by hand. It's free running at the moment. You can see some of the mechanism through the holes where you're going to pull the belt through. No cartridge, I didn't want to damage it, so I've just weighted the head a little bit. So first of all, when you press start, the motor will start running normally, and that rod pushes the little upright piece that had broken over, so as this rotates it'll push it and start the mechanism going. So you can hear it. It's lifted the arm, swings the arm over which would normally be adjusted at the start of the record, and then it lowers. Okay, it's got some anti-skating on, so it's gone over, and it will play and across. If I move it all the way to the middle, yeah, it operates the auto return. It takes it back, and then it'll switch off, which it has done. So that's good. Didn't have to repair the center trip part on the gear, which had worn quite a lot, and it seems to be working just fine. It's a matter of I can put the new belt on now and test it plugged into the mains. Can set up the arm with the cartridge in it, the playing weight, adjusting the big weight on the end, adjusting the playing weight and the anti-skip. If necessary, you can adjust the raise and lower height with that little screw-in part there. And there's also an adjustable point for the set down on the record. We can do all that as well, if necessary. Easiest way to do the belt is to fit the new belt on the inside. Cut a little piece of paper that you're going to be using to pull it and push it through the hole. Then I'll just show you when it's in place how you can just pull that over the spindle. Okay, with the record in place, with turntable platter in place, you can see you can pull that. Not sure if I can do it with one hand, but just pull it across and round the spindle. It's got to go through that guide as well. Yeah, and hopefully it's not twisted, so there you can see that. Now it's over the spindle, and you've got the guide here for the speed, 33, and down to 45. It jumps down onto the next size, and that's working good. Back up to 33. There. So that won't be slipping now. One more problem to solve. Horrible noise coming from the motor. I'll just start it up and you can hear it. Now that is probably the motor's rubbing on the sides of the coils. Hopefully, nothing else, because when it stops, okay, sound has stopped. So let's turn it over and take the bottom off, check the bearing. I've taken the motor apart. You just take two screws out and you can lift the whole thing out of the coil assembly here. I think this is the problem. This is in three parts and it's come unglued. These rings on top were glued on. You can see where they were glued, and they've come unglued now and they're just sort of thrashing about. So just think about what glue we can use, possibly super glue. I think can handle any heat build up. I don't think it would dry out and fall off. So it looks like we've got to glue those parts back on. I super glued the magnet and the alloy plate back on top of the rotor where it had come undone, making very careful that I lined it up and held it in position when it stuck. Otherwise it'll still rub if you get it off center. So now I've plugged it in. Let's just turn it on. Oh, it's going round, it's not rubbing anymore. So hopefully that super glue will hold it, because it doesn't really have any loads on it to make it come apart. I've glued the magnet and spacer back on top of the rotor. I put it back together again, got the belt on, plugged it in. Let's just see how it goes now. Let's just do manual. Okay, it's silent now, at last. Final test with a record. It's got the Shure M75-6 cartridge. I've set it to about 2 grams tracking weight, and bias. I've got an LP. Let's put Nora Jones on. So release the lock. Auto start. So it's set down okay. It's nice and quiet. Belt drive, of course, and that centre pivot bearing was a bit of a step forward from their normal rubber wheel idler drive turntables that came before. Synchronous motor. Your cigarette cuts through. This Shure cartridge sounds pretty good actually. I quite like the sound of it. Anyway, I tested it, it will pick up at the end of the record, and we can do auto stop, I believe. That works. Lowers it down, just turns it off. And you can lock that in. That's good, that's finished. I've put it back in that cut bit of plinth until I decide if anyone wants it.